Thank you, thank you. Oh wow, can you all hear me? Okay, so how's that for the correct level of disturbingly loud? Is that about right? Okay, excellent. So, thank you all very much for coming along in your lunch break to hear me talk about things to see and hear in the fourth dimension. My name, as Alan very kindly said, is Matt Parker, and in terms of my background, I used to be a high school math teacher, actually. So my original job was teaching maths to teenagers, and I'm originally from Australia. So I taught in Australia for a year, and then I realized not enough people were throwing chairs at me, and so I moved to London, and that fixed that. And I taught in London for a few years, again in a couple of different high schools, and then I started to drift from normal math teaching to kind of education support. I started working for some universities and developing resources and doing sessions for school kids. So schools would send their kids along to the university and would do like summer schools and things with them. And so I did that for a while. Actually, I did that for 18 months, and then I started to get nostalgic for the classroom. So at one point, I went back. I did 6 months in a inner city London school, and that just cleared that right up, right? And at the end of that, I'm like, I'm out. So since 2009 was the last time I was a real teacher as such. And my career now is spread across several things. So you can see I'm based at Queen Mary University of London, which is a university in East London. I'm there 1 day a week. I'm their Public Engagement in Maths Fellow, which is what happens when you're allowed to write your own job title. So, fun fact, fellow is the most academically sounding credential you can have with no qualifications. And so I'm there, I teach the academics and the undergraduates to communicate maths to other humans. And then the rest of my time is spent doing things like this. I do a lot of writing about maths, I do a lot of speaking about maths. I work as a stand-up. So actually for a while I was doing both. I was a math teacher and I was doing stand-up. So during the day, I was teaching math to teenagers, and in the evening, I was telling jokes to drunk people in comedy clubs, which is a surprisingly similar skill set. And after a while, I realized I enjoy doing both together. And so I do a lot of very nerdy comedy, and I do a lot of bits and pieces for media and YouTube and the like. Oh, I do quite a bit of work on YouTube. So if I look familiar, but in higher resolution than normal, I do the Numberphile channel on YouTube. Actually, that was in the first round of funded YouTube channels. It was the only non-US one, was the Numberphile channel we started in the UK. So thanks, there you are, which is great fun, and we still do it. And there was a weird crossover point where kids in school started recognizing me more from YouTube than from TV work. And the teachers had no idea what they were talking about, which is, it's great that a lot of nerdy kids, if they get bored at school, can turn to YouTube to watch fascinating bits of maths. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. And it's kind of fixed a problem where bright kids would get very bored at school and they get switched off the subject, whereas now they can access this much wider community of people and they can see the exciting side of mathematics. And that kind of keeps them going while they're at school. And so the book was an attempt to do a very similar thing as well, where I want to kind of package up some of the things I do with school kids. But I thought there's no point bringing you along here and making you hear about me talk about the book Things to Make and Do in the Fourth Dimension, which is why you're currently enjoying the talk Things to See and Hear in the Fourth. A wildly different talk, I must point. I mean, completely different content. But there are books around, and I'll be around to chat afterwards. And I may refer to a few things that are in the book. And so that's pretty much it in terms of who I am. So what I'm going to do today is effectively just show you some of my favorite bits of math. And I'll do that for approximately the remaining 2/5 of an hour and 24 minutes. If you didn't know that was 24 minutes, you were working for the wrong company. And then I will be around, we'll do some question and answers, and then I will loiter around afterwards to have a chat. And we are actually going to do some math, by the way. That's not an idle threat. So can everyone who brought their calculator, could you take that out now? Really? Is that an actual calculator? No, it's a phone. Fine. What, you're going for a phone? Phones are perfectly acceptable. Some of you have already got Wolfram Alpha open. That's brilliant. So if you could get out your favorite calculation device and switch it into calculate mode, we're going to do, you don't have to, this is purely optional. We're going to do a few warm-up calculations just to get us going. So once you've got it out, put in any 2-digit number you fancy, and then calculate the cube of that 2-digit number. And if I was doing this with school kids, I do a lot of this with high school kids, I have to be very careful to say multiply it by the same 2 digits, then hit multiply, same 2 digits again, then hit equals. If you try this with your friends and you're not sufficiently specific, you'll get the 4th power by accident. So most of you should have very happily cubed a 2-digit number. And what you're doing is the kind of boring part of math, the multiplying things over and over. It's the reason why we have calculators. The fun part is what you can do with patterns in the answer. Is there anyone who's prepared to share the answer that they've got? Not the number you started with, but the answer on your screen. Yes, sir. What have you?
357,911.
So you put in 357,911. So you put in 71 and cube that. Thank you. Okay, you're keeping your excitement at a manageable level. Don't patronize me. Right, so has anyone else got an answer they're prepared to? Oh, tell you, if I get it right, instead of just going, right, if you could say yes, I mean, the thumbs up is optional, but highly recommended. If you could say yes when I get them right, that would help my self-esteem dramatically. Okay, has anyone else got an answer they're prepared? And if you give it in so many thousands and then the rest, what have you got at the back, phone guy?
804,357.
804,000, you put in 93. Thank you. Some of you are applauding sarcastically. I tell you, I would do 3 more, and then you go the correct amount of wild. So there are 3 people. Don't call them out yet. 3 people who are prepared to give me the answers. If I get all 3 right in quick succession, then you can humour me with some applause. Okay, so hang on a second. Remain calm. 1. Anyone else? 2 over there, and 3 over here. Okay, we'll make it like an exponential trick, right? So we'll start with you over there, and then you, ma'am, and then a guy on the end. Okay, right, here we go. So what have you got over there? What's the answer?
531,441.
81. Yes! Remain calm. Right.
21,952.
28. Silent nod. Yes, and
132,651.
51.
Yeah.
Fine. Now, by the way, because some of you are now working out how that's done. Some of you probably know how that's done, right? And so I'm not going to explain it fully, but first of all, I've not just memorized every single 2-digit number cube. Actually, I've been doing it for a few years, so I'm dangerously close to having done that. What I'm actually doing is there are patterns in the answer. And so there are 2 patterns in the answer. And one pattern gives you the first digit, and the other pattern gives you the second digit of the original 2-digit number. So as you're calling out the number, all I'm doing is I'm scanning it for the first pattern that comes up is the first digit, so the first digit, and the second pattern gives me the second digit. So I'm just scanning for those as you call it out. And it's not an alarmingly difficult thing to do in your head if you learn it. If you want to work out how to do that, if you come and see me afterwards, I'm happy to explain it. Or if you just try cubing some 2-digit numbers, as some of you are doing right now, or you're texting a friend. You wouldn't believe what's in the lunchtime talk today, right? And so if you try some numbers, you've probably got a spreadsheet open right now, right? It's reasonably easy to work out how that's done. So I'm going to do a much harder calculation, and a few of you again will know how this is done. But if you haven't, I will explain this one at the end, so you can all learn this. And this doesn't involve a calculator; it involves something with a barcode on it. Could everyone have a look? I need someone in the audience who's brought a product they've purchased in a shop with a retail barcode. Not technically a joke, but thank you for joining in. My book, right? So not my book. Has anyone got what have you got? What is that? Is that? Chewing gum. Okay, can you have a look at the barcode for me, sir? Is there a tiny little digit to the left and a tiny digit to the right, and all the other digits are underneath? Don't say what they are, but there's a digit on each side. Okay. What I'm going to get you to do in a second is to read out all the digits of that barcode, starting with the one off to the left, all the ones underneath, and do not tell me the one off to the right. I'm going to try and calculate in my head what the one off to the right is. If I get it correct, you shout yes. Everyone goes bananas. Okay, so, and I've already noticed some of you are very good at that. So, and don't go too fast. I will say yep after each digit as we go along, so I can, people can often race through them. Hang on. Hang on. I'm getting in the math zone over here, all right? Okay, I'm ready. Okay, first digit.
0.
Is it the same 0 or a different 0? That's the one you said. That's the one on the left is a 0. Okay, excellent. Okay, right. Give me a second. Okay, got that. Yep.
1.
1. Got it. Yep.
2.
Yep.
5.
Yep.
4.
Yep.
6.
Yep. Yep.
7,
Yep.
0,
Yep.
0,
Yep.
3.
Yep. The final digit, is there one more? It's a 6.
Yes.
I like a brief moment of confusion before the climax to a stunt. So now that, right, some of you have no idea what you just applauded. Those of you who know about check digits and error detection and error correction, which is the vast majority of you, will know that there is a pattern in all barcodes. And all North American barcodes have the same pattern. It's a subtly different pattern to what they have in Europe. So I had to learn a different method to make it work here. If you want to learn how to do that, this is the pattern, right? So as someone is reading out the digits of the barcode, initially all you have to do is add together every odd position digit. So you add the first digit they call out to the third to the fifth all the way up. And if you add every second digit starting in the first position, you get a subtotal. You multiply that subtotal by 3, and then you go back and add on the other digits you skipped. And if you add every second digit, multiply by 3, add the other digits, for all US barcodes, the grand total will be a multiple of 10. And so if you keep track in your head and there's one digit missing at the end, it's whatever you need to get. Okay, now some of you are mildly impressed. It's what you need to get to the next digit. So in the total in my head ended in a 4, and so I knew it must be a 6 to get up to the next sum. I'm a hoot at parties, by the way. And so I think it's amazing because most people have no idea that these patterns are built into barcodes and things around them. And so actually, if you look on the book, it's got the barcode at the bottom and the ISBN at the top, and the ISBN is a subtly different pattern. But again, it's got exactly the same thing. Credit cards have the same thing. I can do the same stunt with credit cards, but very few people will read their entire 16-digit number out in public. But that's subtly different. You double every second position, and if you get a 2-digit number, you add the digits together to get the digit root, and then once you add all of those together, you get a multiple. And most people go about their daily lives completely oblivious that all these mathematical patterns are in the background. If we didn't have that pattern in barcodes, our modern shopping centers wouldn't work, right? Because when you scan something at the supermarket, because the lasers aren't very accurate, right? Because lasers make a lot of mistakes. Physics, right? But thankfully, math comes to the rescue, right? Because if it scans the barcode wrong, the pattern won't match. And so it knows it's misscanned the barcode. And so it keeps trying to scan it until it gets one where the pattern matches. The vast majority of the time, that then means it scanned it correctly and it goes on to your bill. And people would get very emotional if they scanned one product and had to pay for something. Well, it depends on the price difference, I guess. And so people don't know that this pattern is hidden in the background there. And the same thing happens with text messages. So those of you who know Reed Solomon and the types of error encoding you can do with text messages, there's a fantastic way to look at what happens with a text message. Because when you're typing in the text message, and your phone is turning all the characters you're entering into numbers, it effectively puts those numbers into a giant grid. It goes through that grid and puts a mathematical pattern into every single row, and then puts another pattern into every single column, and it puts a third pattern into subsections within the grid. And if that sounds vaguely familiar, it's because it turns your text message into a Sudoku puzzle. Right? And so people have a sense that if you give them a Sudoku puzzle, even though huge sections are missing, all these numbers are missing here, all these numbers are missing down here, right? If you know the 3 mathematical patterns, you can recreate all those missing digits. And so people, for fun, do error correction as kind of a leisurely activity, which I think is fantastic. And so you see, I push people on the train would be doing. I'm like, oh, you love error correction too, and I'm what? But this is absolutely amazing. And if you give it to more than one person, everyone gets the same answer, right? Because you're using the same patterns. The difference with text messages is it's done more as a cube, and the digits, and its coefficients for polynomials are done in 3 different directions across the cube to get the same pattern. But it's exactly the same logic behind this. And people are quite happy that they can solve a Sudoku, but yet they think it's astounding that if there's an error or information is lost when they send a text message, that the phone can recreate all the missing information. And the same thing with Blu-rays and everything else. And there's such good error correction in a Blu-ray disc. You can get a drill bit which is about 3 or 4 millimeters across, right? So that's some obscure fraction of an inch, right? And if you get that, right, and if you get a Blu-ray disc, if you get someone else's Blu-ray disc, right, you can drill a hole straight through the, well, not straight through the middle, there's already a hole there, right? You can, just to the side, right, you can drill a hole. And if the laser, physics, is good enough in the Blu-ray, because the main issue is cheap Blu-ray players will lose track of where they're up to, right? If it can keep track, it can recreate all the missing information that's been drilled out. And again, without this maths, our modern technology simply wouldn't be possible. When I made this one myself, by the way, I'm quite proud of this. I wanted to look like an X, like an algebraic, tough crowd. Whoa. The top row are the digits in the order they appear in pi. There you go. So if you want a copy of that, send me an email. And so I quite like that. It's kind of useful maths, like maths you can actually do something with. But oh, actually, I've got another bit of fantastically useful maths I'm going to teach you, right? Because I thought I'd better show you something you've not seen before, because I should be very disappointed. And if people work on you've been working on encoding all day, and you come in here and you're like, oh, great, this is my lunch break doing error correction, right? So I'm going to show you some useful maths to save time in your day-to-day life. And to do that, I've brought with me down here. I'm going to go off mic and yell for a second. Can you all hear me? Possibly even better now that I've started. Okay, right. So I've got down here a camera. Right, so this is on the floor here. I'm going to teach you the mathematical way to tie your shoes. Right, and this will speed up your life immensely. So can you all see? Can you all see my shoe? You can, 4 of them. That is, oh wow, this is like the world's most surreal chorus line. Yeah, look at that. Yeah. So, if anyone comes in late now, right, just go with it, okay? So, right, so here's what you do, right? So, normally, when people tie their shoes, they, let me just angle that down a smidgen. Oops, up, there we go. Okay, so when people tie their shoes normally, they get the laces, they do like a little foundation knot, and they get these, and they do all sorts of moving them around and mashing them together. What you can actually do, if you just hold the 2 laces and pass them across each other, they will tie themselves. Okay, you're again keeping your excitement at a nice, manageable level. Okay, what do you watch? Actually, is there a delay on the camera? Can I? I bet I can tie this and then watch myself tie it. Ready? Here we go. Ready? Okay, ready? So I'm just holding the laces and tied. Close. I've actually never tried this, because I'm doing this with school kids, and normally they're setting fire to something by now. Would you like to try? If you've got a shoe, choose your favorite, undo the laces, and I will actually teach you how to do this. So you do that little foundation knot there, so you've all got that. Take the shoelace on the right and curve it so it goes up and forward, and you hold it on the way down. So it goes up in a loop and then down. You're holding it on the descending part of the loop. The other side is the same thing, but it curls back, and you hold it on the descending part of the loop. And then all you have to do is pass the bits you're holding under the other loop, swap hands, and pull. Oh. 1, okay, that's... We've been through the don't patronize me bit. So if you practice that, you can save literally ones of seconds of your life, right, on a daily basis, right? And it's exactly the same knot that you end up with. So mathematically, that is the same knot. And a lot of people don't appreciate that there is a whole area of maths about knots. There's knot theory. Best name of a theory ever. Right? And so people are knot theorists. Are you a theorist? I am not theorist. Knot theorists look at the maths behind different knots. And as humans, we know dangerously little about knots. It's a reasonably new area of mathematics. Well, it kicked off in the 1800s, but today we still haven't got a great understanding of knots in general. And in fact, I put a picture of one knot in my book. I've got a shot of it up here. We still do not know the best way to undo this knot. This is it's called the 10-11 knot, if you want to look it up afterwards. When you do a knot diagram, you leave a gap when it goes underneath. These are not disjoint bits of string. This is just where it goes underneath there. And to undo a knot mathematically, you do what's called a crossing switch. So you would cut one bit of the string, move it around another one, and join it back up again. So you take it from one side to the other side and rejoin it. And we know this knot can be undone in 3 crossing switches. But no one's found a way to do it in 2. And likewise, no one's managed to prove that there isn't a way to do it in 2. This is an open question in mathematics. This is, in fact, the most simple knot for which we do not understand. And for the vast majority of knots above it, we have no idea. And so my theory is if enough people make this out of string and try it, sooner or later, if there's a way to do it, for a very generous definition of sooner or later possibly, right, we will come across how it can be undone. And at that point, fame and mathematical fortune is yours. For a very narrow definition of fame and fortune. So if you can try and make this out of string, you look it up online, it's the 10, 11 knot. If you do find a way to do it, let me know. Photograph yourself pointing at the bits where you're going to make the crossing switches first, then make them. If it untangles, we'll know what you actually, because if it happens and you don't know how it was arranged, because in this arrangement it won't work. We've tried everything in this arrangement. You have to make it that way, pick it up, jumble it around, put it down a different way, make 2 crossing switches, see if it untangles itself. And actually, it's reasonably important that we know how to do this, because at the moment, bacteria are better at undoing knots than humans, which is a little bit worrying, because when bacteria reproduces, in fact, same thing happens with most cells, human included, the DNA gets tangled and knotted. And so some bacteria have circular DNA, it gets very knotted when they reproduce, and there are enzymes which go around and perform crossing switches, exactly like that. They will snip one bit of DNA, move it around another one, and rejoin it. And they do that very efficiently to untangle the DNA. And if they can't do that, the bacteria can't reproduce. And so knot theorists from the maths department are working with biologists to try and work out what the bacteria is doing, why it's better than us. And if we get a better understanding of both what it's doing and how to undo knots in general, that could be a new wave of antibiotics. If we have a way to impede or stop bacteria from unknotting its DNA, then we'll be able to stop it from reproducing. And so I think it's very exciting that a future wave of new medicine and new therapies can come about because knot theory, which was started initially by physicists trying to understand, there was a string theory of matter is what first kicked it off, but then mathematicians took it on because it was kind of fun and it could be saving lives in the future, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So I've got actually, you know what, let's do 3 things and then I'll wrap up for questions, because I've got a new toy that I'm going to show you very quickly, and this was, I've put it in my bag here. I wasn't originally going to talk about this, but while I'm here, I made this 2 days ago, and I'm very excited about it. What I did was I bought a brass disc off the internet. I bought this. I'm sure I used a Google service or another, and so it definitely wasn't from Amazon. And then what I've done is I've put a small notch in the disc, and that notch is 14.5% of the diameter, or it's 29% of the radius, or it's 2 minus root 2 on 2% of the radius, to be specific. And the reason I've done that is if you do it to 2 disks. So a circle rolls because as it rotates, the center of mass stays at exactly the same height. Very, very handy. But if you get 2 disks and you intersect them like this at right angles, and I made those notches so the centers of the 2 disks are now root 2 apart compared to the radius. So if you've got 1 unit is the radius, that's root 2, the distance between the 2 disks. And what it means is as this rotates on a flat surface, the center of mass stays at exactly the same level. And I haven't got a flat surface here. I'm going to try it over here. I checked, my cable's not long enough to get the camera over there, but I'm going to try it on this bench, if you don't mind. So if I put it there, if I give that a bump, the center of mass stays at exactly the same height. And if you want to kick that back in the opposite direction, it's optional. Feel free to join in. Okay, look at that. So, so the center of mass is going side to side. In a rather, it's not even a sine wave. We're going backwards and forwards. It's quite a complicated wave. It's a combination of different curves. But in terms of its height above the surface, it stays perfectly flat. And you can prove that for 2 main locations using nothing more complicated than Pythagoras or similar triangles. So that's your challenge for when you should be working. Use some of your 10% time, right, to calculate why the center of mass for that one, because what you do is assume the center of mass stays at the same height, and it will drop out that the center of the disks has to be root 2 apart. That's the easiest way to go about it. And using Pythagoras and similar triangles, you can show that works. I will leave it up there, and if you want to have a play with it afterwards, you can roll it backwards and forwards on there. Or you can make your own out of CDs, which you might have in some of the display cases with technology from the past. Or make your own circles. You can get those to roll quite nicely. It's kind of fun. Anyway, so the last 2 things I'm going to show you is a ridiculous project that I did a couple of years ago, and I'm going to finish by showing you the Christmas present that my mum gave me 2 years ago. which is relevant. It's not just like, hey, check out this jumper, right? It's a proper maths thing. But before I get to that, this is a ridiculous project I did a couple years ago where I was trying to explain the way that logic circuits work. And to try and explain circuitry to people in general, I decided to use dominoes. Because what I've done here is I've set up a chain of dominoes, and the great thing about a circuit of dominoes is you can send information along dominoes, right? Because if you put a signal in one end, that signal will move along the chain and come out the other end, right? And so you could use this. This could be practical. So if your doorbell has broken, right, you could have a long chain of dominoes. So you've got a sign at the door that says, please bump domino, right? And that goes all the way through your house into the living room. And if you're there and the dominoes fall over, you go, oh, there's someone at the door, right? And they're sending information. Not hugely efficient, but it would work. And you can get far more complicated. So instead of just sending one little bit of information, you can have a network that interacts. So now I've got two inputs and a single output. And this is set up so you have to bump over both inputs for the output to go over. If you bump over either one separately, it won't make it all the way through the circuit. And so if you want more information about who's at the door, so let's say you order a pizza, right? And you've got one thing that says, bump this domino if you're here, another one that says, bump this domino if you have a pizza, right? And only if there's someone there with a pizza will the signal get all the way through. And I can show you this working, because what happens is this one by itself blocks itself from getting through. Whereas if you bump that one as well, it would have stopped this one from stopping itself, right? And the signal would have gone through. And for this, I like to consider knocking a domino over as a 1, and it standing up is a 0. And so you can see I've got a table in the corner. I'll make it a little bit bigger. So for completeness, this is the complete setup for that circuit, right? We can still think of this in terms of pizzas. So 0 and 0, no one's at the door, and they haven't got a pizza. Right? And so nothing will happen. There's someone at the door and they haven't got a pizza. That won't get through. Okay, for completeness, somehow a pizza has arrived at the door, right, and has managed to read the sign and bump the appropriate. So should there be a self-aware pizza, right? This is what will happen. The signal, thank God, won't get through, right? And then down, because that is a horrifying experience, right? And then here we have the person with the pizza and the signal gets through. This is an AND gate. So if you've done logic gates, this is an AND gate made out of dominoes. We can do even better. This is the exclusive OR gate, where the signal only gets through if you bump over one and the other one, but not both. So that's the exclusive bit, one or the other, not both simultaneously. There it is, made out of dominoes. If you've got 100 dominoes in your board, you can make these. There's about 100 dominoes to put these together. And what happens now is you hit them both together, they collide in the middle and stop. But if you hit either one separately, it will travel through and out the other side. So they stop and annihilate, whereas one by itself would have carried on and out. Now, at this point, a few of you are thinking, why? Why would you? Some of you know where I'm going with this, right? And if you know where I'm going with this, my only advice is for now, just remain calm, okay? Because we have a long way to go with this, right? Because what you can do now is get to a circuit which does both simultaneously, right? If you have two inputs and two outputs, and one's the AND gate, one's the exclusive OR gate, you've got a circuit which counts the number of inputs that have been bumped. So this is a very basic calculator. So if you think of the outputs as a binary number, the exclusive OR is the units, the AND is the 2's, and then it tells you how many inputs were bumped, right, as a binary readout. So this can count in binary. And to make one, you need 200 to 300 dominoes. It looks a little bit like this, right? And so this, two circuits coming in, it's basically exclusive OR, but with an extra block on the side. This is a delay circuit. To give this long enough to run, you slow down this signal so it doesn't get there ahead of time. So there's a few timing issues with this circuit, but it can be made, right? And a few of you are thinking, well, if you got this far, right, what you really want is through, this is the full adder, yes, right, so right, try not to skip ahead to the punchline without me, all right? So this is the full adder, so you can do any arithmetic you want with a full adder, because you've got the two numbers you're adding, you've got a carry from any previous calculation, you've got the carry out that flows onto the next column, and you've got the write out, which is the output you're doing, right? And so if you can make a full adder, you're effectively counting any three inputs and giving the two-digit thing out. Now, unfortunately, at this point, I worked it out. To build one of these would take about 1,000 dominoes. And it would look like that. So This is me at the, this is the Manchester University. This is the maths floor, very flat. We managed to sneak in there. We had 1,000 dominoes and we built a working full adder out of dominoes, right? And so, again, the problem was slowing down the signals. You get a lot of synchronization issues, but we got to slow down the right ones and send the other ones through, and the whole thing worked really well. And then we were like, well, this is brilliant. Right, and some of you know, if you chain these in a row, right, if you have adders in a row, you can add numbers of any size. So if you had 3 of these in a row, you could add 2 3-digit binary numbers and get a 4-digit binary output. But that would take 10,000 dominoes. And it would look like this. So, I now own 10,000 dominoes, right? So this took us a day. It took 10 of us, 12 people, but we were rotating in shifts. Oh my God, this is nerve-wracking work, right? And so we managed to build a circuit with 10,000 dominoes, which would add 2 3-digit binary numbers and give you a 4-digit output. So this is a working computer circuit. This is an actual computer. I mean, the display resolution is terrible, but it does actually work as a computer. And we ran it and it worked. We were able to add 2 3-digit numbers and we got a 4-digit output. And we had the museum. This is the Museum of Science and Industry in Manchester. Brilliantly, you can't see it in this shot. We are directly in front of the rebuild of the first baby computer that Alan Turing worked on. Right, so it was behind us. I could see the vacuum tubes and everything of the original baby computer. And I was allowed once to have a play on it. And it's so cool because the memory, right, the input for the memory is a board of buttons. And literally each one corresponds to a bit. And so you enter the ones you want, that one's to be a 1, that one's a 1. And so you enter the ones that you want to switch to 1s and hit go. A phenomenal piece of kit. And I got to meet Alan Turing's last ever student who worked with him on that machine. And so he told me stories about Turing wrote the operating system that ran the version after that. Absolutely incredible. Happy to chat about that. Oh, and by the way, the Imitation Game film, not that bad, pretty good, pretty good. The maths is, I mean, it was very brave. The first half an hour is Cumberbatch describing how you prove the existence of uncomputable numbers. So I was very impressed. It's not, he just looks handsome and smoulders. But if you want to talk Turing, see me afterwards anyway. So we've got to build this in Manchester, which I was so pleased. And we did it on the first day and it worked. And we had a backup day. And we're like, well, let's not waste this, right? Because we could have 2 4-digit inputs and get a 5-digit readout, right? And we did that, but it didn't work. 2 things went wrong. So because we didn't have any more space, because we had the same section of the museum kind of sectioned off, and we didn't have any more dominoes, so we had to make it more dense, we had to make it more efficient. So we had to cut back on the timing, and we had to have the rows closer together, and 2 things went horribly wrong. The first one is here. We had crosstalk. We had signal bleed, right, from one row of dominoes onto another, right? So if you watch, this one here should not fall over. That domino should stay up, but if you watch as the other chain comes through, I'll set it going, here it comes. As the other one comes through, here it comes. Here we go. Look at that! And in slow motion. Here it comes. No! All right, so that gave us an extra output we didn't want. So that ran through and tripped what should have been a 0 and the answer became a 1. And the other one was here. Okay, so if you, let me show you what happens here, right? If you watch that row of dominoes, it is going to carry along to this output here, but this one should get there first, and bam, stop it, right? I've been watching a lot of American football while I've been over, right? And bam, right? It should stop it there. So this signal stops, it closes this gate before that signal gets there, right? Unfortunately, it didn't work. If I show it to you in slow motion, look, this one's so going to get there first. So going to get there first. Look at that, here it is. Here it comes, coming in. It's going to close that gate and, 2 dominoes off. But at least it went wrong in interesting ways. Like, if it had just been bumped by accident, that would have been very upsetting, but it went wrong in insightful ways as to what happens in actual circuits, because that was a synchronization issue. So I was so pleased with the way that worked out. And actually, the last project I did was a collaborative project using different museums around the world, and we used Google Hangouts. We used the live feature on Hangouts to link between different build sites around the world. So I was in Manchester, and I could talk to people who were working in Finland and Canada and the US. And the fractal, we're building a Mega Menja, the one that is at MoMath, the Museum of Science and Industry here. So if you want to go and have a look at this amazing fractal thing they've put together, and it was great that we could use Hangouts to, people could watch at home, we could cut between the different build sizes. Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, the last thing I'm going to show you, and then we'll do questions, is I've brought the Christmas present my mum made me. I've got it right here, right? And so I'll bring up is that my title slide? Okay, here we go. So you should have seen my giddy face on Christmas morning, right, when I unwrapped a knitted scarf, right, made entirely out of ones and zeros. Right, so I had no idea she was doing this, right, behind my back, and she went and she made it. I'm like, that's amazing. And when I saw it initially, I thought they were just random ones and zeros, right? And so they went, no, hang on. Every single row starts 0, 1, 0, right? And so that means every single row is an uppercase letter in Unicode, right? Because my mum knits the way she text messages, right? And so, old habits die hard, huh? Right. And so I was like, well, I've got to work out what it says, right? This is Christmas morning. I was like, this is brilliant, right? So I got the back of the wrapping paper. I got my pen out, right? What a Christmas morning. I got to sit around with the family and decode my present, right? And if you actually go through and work it out, I'm now fluent in binary, by the way. Of course, because when people get me to sign their book, I can say, do you want that in normal characters or in ASCII? Right, and so I can do people's names in binary. If you're bored afterwards, come up and I'll put your name in binary. And I suspect most of you will then go and fact check that very quickly. And so anyway, so I was able to work it out. My mum found a quote from me. She found an interview I did for a website. So it says, maths is fun, keep doing maths. Except it doesn't. Right? When I actually decoded it, she swapped a 1 with a 0. There's a mistake part way down, right? And so it was right on the end. It turned a U into a V. And so it actually says, maths is for Vun. Keep doing maths. I was like, oh, Mum, I hate to ruin your Vun, but you swapped a 1 with a 0. She was very upset because she is quite the pedant. And then I was like, well, actually, Mum, because she wanted to take it back and fix it. She wanted to undo it and replace it. I said, no. The thing is, you don't have to do that, actually, because to make the scarf long enough, she knit the same message 4 times. So it repeats front, back, right? And she only made a mistake in 1 of those. Right? So what it means is all I have to do is calculate the average value across all 4 versions. And that gives you back the original message without the mistake. And so today, ladies and gentlemen of Google, I can present to you the world's first error-correcting scarf. If you would like to meet the scarf, I will leave it at the front. It does also sign autographs. You have to hold it with the pen yourself. So you're coming to get a photo of you wearing the scarf, that's fine. I will leave that here. You can come and check the code to make sure it all works. Otherwise, I will be loitering until I get kicked out or people have to go back to work. If you want me to come and deface your book so it lowers the resale value, I'm more than happy to do that. Or answer any other questions. If I mention something and you've missed it or you want a copy of all the circuit diagrams for the Domino computer are in the book, right? And originally they were like, I put them in, my editor looked at it and went, okay, you're not having them, they're not going in. Okay. And it happened to a few things. I said, tell you what, would I be allowed answers at the back of the book? And they were like, sure. I went, brilliant, right? So seriously, a massive chunk of the book, right, is answers at the back. And so the circuit diagrams for the dominoes are in there. But if you send me an email about anything else you want a copy of, or I've mentioned something and didn't go into enough detail, let me know. But on that note, I've finished. I'd like to thank Alan very much for organising all this. It's been fantastic coming in. Thank you all very much for listening so well. Cheers. Oh, we had Q&A, right. So, he had that look of, you're not finished yet, right? I know you got the free lunch first, but now you've got to earn it. So any questions people would like to ask? If you can't get to the mic, I will repeat them for the sake of the recording, so they end up permanently encoded. But if other people would like to come up, you can ask questions from the centre. If you're bringing your laptop with you, it's going to be quite the question. I simulated this, and frankly...
While writing the book, what's the most amazing thing that you learned which you didn't already know and that fascinated you as a problem and the solution?
Oh, that's a very good question. So writing the book, what was the thing I learned that was the most surprising? There's a few bits in there where I found new examples of types of numbers, right? Because I've been learning Python as a hobby. Because I had to program at university, I hadn't done it for years. So there's a few bits where I ran simulations to find ridiculous numbers. Some of those were kind of fun, but I kind of knew they'd be out there. And if I ran the code, they would show up sooner or later. What I really found amazing was because the book, the conceit is it's about the fourth dimension. There are huge sections about 4D shapes. And in 3D, I knew this before, but I'd never actually looked into it. In 3D, you get the platonic solids. If you've not come across these, are the very, very regular 3D shapes. All the faces are the same, all the vertices are the same, edges are the same. And there's famously 5 of them. So there's the tetrahedron, octahedron, cube, icosahedron, and dodecahedron in a random order I just made up. And in 4D, there's another one. So you get the 4D equivalents of the 5 standard platonic solids. There's another one that I call the hyperdiamond. It's the 4D equivalent of a rhombic dodecahedron, but it is a platonic solid in 4D, and it's not in 3D. And it's not again in 5D. It breaks again in 5D. It only works in 4 dimensions. And so visualizing it, I try to find a way to visualize it. And in 3D, a rhombic dodecahedron is what happens if you get a solid cube and turn it inside out. So if you imagine it as 6 square-based pyramids and flip them all around the other way, you get a rhombic dodecahedron. The same thing happens in 4 dimensions. If you get a 4D tesseract, a 4D cube, and if anyone's, I don't want to ruin, spoiler alert, Interstellar, they mentioned tesseract. I was like, yes. And by the way, I can confirm the 5th dimension is love. So, right, but the same thing happens. If you turn a 4D cube inside out, you get the hyperdiamond, and absolutely brilliant. And then, in case you're wondering, 5D, there's only 3 platonic solids, and that's for every dimension above that, 6D, 7D. As long as you go, you'll only ever have you always get the cube, the tetrahedron, and the octahedron. Repeat all the way up, and then the other ones, and you never see them again. And so there's this fantastic flare-up of shapes in kind of 3 and 4 dimensions. It doesn't happen again. I think that's fascinating. Further answers will be shorter. Yes.
Can you tell us more about the testing of the calculator? Like, did someone accidentally hit a domino down? Did you try it out and something goes wrong to reset the whole thing? How long did all that take?
Okay, so the question was, can you tell us more about testing the domino calculator, and could you relive some of those horrifying experiences? So to this day, the sound of dominoes toppling on concrete breaks me out in a cold sweat. So originally I bought a box of about 100 dominoes. I'd seen a YouTube video of someone trying it, and they kind of cheated. They taped dominoes together, and they were doing the AND gate, I think. And I went, well, surely you can do a half adder. So I bought a couple hundred, it kind of worked. And then I went, all right. And so I bought 2,000, and then we had the concrete floor at the university, and we wanted to know, first of all, is it reliable enough? We were really worried about if it would be reliable enough, and can it be built fast enough? Because if we couldn't actually build the thing, it wasn't going to work. And the big problem was having the junctions work routinely. And a very good mathematician, Sean, she came up with what we called the junction, which was a reliable way of building the junction. And it was very, very, if you did it exactly the right way, it worked every time. It was very robust. And so we built a stencil of that, and we chalked on all those junctions, because we knew they would work, and then you could kind of freestyle getting between them, but we knew as long as we used those for the critical bits, it would work. In terms of actually building it, you'd leave gaps. And the rule was trust the gaps. That was our official rule. Well, actually, one rule we had was if you bump dominoes over by accident, because occasionally you'd knock them, they'd all go. You're like, ah. Right? The rule was you then stand up and walk away. Right, because someone else will come in, someone who's not now emotionally invested. Because you know, in balancing dominoes with a sense of revenge, right? And so someone else will then come in and put them back up for you. And the rule was trust the gaps, because we knew we were going to bump them over by accident and they were going to run. But as long as there was a gap, they would stop. And I saw one volunteer, because I just asked on Twitter, hey, people come and balance dominoes. And one guy bumped it and it started to run, and he lunged to try and stop it. And he bumped the ones after the gap. And so then he was like, oh, I was like, you idiot. And then he realized what he did and tried to stop those and bumped the ones out, at which point we're just wrestling them away from the... and if you watch the video, I've got a YouTube video, it's about half an hour of me balancing dominoes, and I explained the binary and everything else. You can see people walking around inside, because we had to fill in the gaps when we were done. And we did like a fractal. We did every middle bit, and then we went back and did the middle bits in the middle. So trying to minimize the possible damage. But to load it, we left gaps where the data would go in, and you filled in for ones and left it blank for zeros. And we picked random numbers at the end, and then people had to walk out into the center of it and fill in where the ones were. It's the most hair-raising thing of my life. But in the end, it worked. We had one spontaneous bit where we were just standing around, and suddenly a domino fell over and a bit ran. but we hadn't done all the gaps yet, and so we were able to fix that. But very, very stressful. If anyone's ever in the UK and you want to borrow 10,000 dominoes, let me know. I'm happy to lend them to you. I rang up a place because I want to buy them wholesale. I rang up and said, I want to buy dominoes wholesale. They go, oh no, we only send it to shops. And I said, well, I want 10,000. Like, we'll work something out. And so I got them delivered to the museum. It was brilliant. So now actually schools use them now. So schools can take them for free if they pay transport from the previous school. So they get sent around between schools and they try and build the circuits, which is great fun. So I will do one more question, and then I will loiter around if people want to have a chat with me afterwards. So has anyone got a particularly, I mean the pressure's on now, but it'd be a good question. It can be no, is it the tech guy? Is it start again, but have the microphone closer. So.
Could you potentially bioengineer the knot that you showed out of DNA and set a bacteria loose on it to untie it?
Oh, wow. Okay, so very good question from Matthew, the guy filming at the back there, who said, could you make the knot out of DNA and then use that to find the most efficient way to undo it? And that's a very good question. The answer is no idea. So I'm not sure, actually, because what actually happens, if you want to see the way you get knots in DNA, you can try this. Because if anyone's ever made a Mobius loop and then cut it in half, you'll find that you end up with one longer loop. It's fascinating. If you have more twists, you get longer loops that are tangled together, and that's what's happening with DNA. It's an incredibly twisted molecule because it unzips down the middle, but all those twists means the two halves are all tangled around each other. And so what the enzymes, they're called tropo something manase. And so what they're doing, not a biologist, is working on a huge mass of this stuff. So I suspect they never encounter knots that simple. Is my gut reaction. I think it's a bit like solving like the traveling salesman problem. You've got good strategies, but you can't guarantee you've done the best way, but it's incredibly efficient in general. But I don't know. I will contact some biologists and say, look, put down all this curing cancer stuff, right? We got a knot we got to solve, and I'll report back. So on that note, I am going to wrap up, but I will be loitering around for as long as I can. I think I am allowed to finish now. And so on that note, again, thank you all very much. Cheers.